Baltimore.
Hey, I'm Derek.
So thanks for watching our last podcast, and this is our next podcast.
Yeah, this is episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Starring Jeff Young from Megadeth and Badi Assad.
And a bunch of other things.
And a bunch of other things that we'll get into.
Yeah, but right now I think we'll talk about news a little bit.
Yes, music news. What's going on in music news?
Yeah? You guys know?
You guys know?
I can't hear you.
I can't hear you.
I'll tell you what's going on with Music Muse. Last week, late July 2020, a bunch of bands like the Rolling Stones, Aerosmith, Elton John, Lorde, Panic at the Disco, REM, Lionel Richie, Courtney Love, Linkin Park, bunch more, Alanis Morissette. They all wrote a letter together in one room. No, but they all released a big letter asking political campaigns specifically to not necessarily not use their music, but to ask for permission first.
Yeah, that's a crazy thing.
Yes.
Like, political parties can just take your music without asking it. But, like, if a YouTuber takes it, it gets off in a second. Like, it just gets cut off, and they take out all your, whatever you made, to 25 cents. Yeah.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah. That's a whole thing.
Yeah, I don't even think it matters, like, what political campaign it is. Like, if you're right or left or center or green or blue, I don't know. Yeah. But it doesn't matter. It's just because they take it without asking is the thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been going on for a while. I mean, what probably sparked it, though, was the Trump campaign in general.
Yeah, but it could go backwards. Like I was saying before, like, if I'm pretty sure Ted Nugent wouldn't want Obama or Biden or any of those dudes. And I'm not saying anything, but I think it would have been cool if Obama came out with Cat Scratch Fever.
Yeah.
It would be badass.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah, but
you know, Trump got away with a lot of using a lot of people's music, like Guns N' Roses stuff and Neil Young, and what he would say, his political team, quote unquote, said we went completely by the book by using PROs, which is performance rights organizations, stuff like, you might have heard stuff like BMI, ASCAP. What's the one that we're in? CSAC. These are performance rights organizations.
The SAC.
East CSAC. That's not a good logo. Anyway, you're gonna edit like a bull sack right there.
Yeah.
CSAC.
It's gonna be our heads in the back of a truck, like a little sack.
Oh yeah. Anyway, these PROs allow anyone not just anyone, venues and events to use their license songs to use for their establishment or their event. So Donald Trump got away with a lot of he got to use stuff like Sweet Child of Mine and Keep on Rockin' in the Free World, which pissed Neil Young off back like in 2018. And just because he said we did it by the book, you know, we went through like ASCAP and they let us, you know, we licensed it for this one event and it was all good. And Neil Young said something like, I don't like that, that sucks or whatever. And he like, I think he tweeted something. I don't know if Neil Young knows how to tweet, but someone tweeted something there. And then and Trump's people responded, all right, fine, we're not going to use it anymore. We're just not. And that's actually what some lawyers are saying. Like, the best retaliation is just to tweet how much you don't like it. If you're a big artist, because then it gets all this negative backlash, and most likely they'll be like, all right, never mind. But that didn't work because...
Then he used it again, or?
Yeah, that was 2 years ago. That was in 2018, and now in 2020, Neil Young is threatening. This week, he was threatening to sue Trump. Like, if you use my shit one more time, I'm gonna sue you, dude. Like, stop using my stuff.
Yeah, I do think like people should just ask before they use anything. It's just like seems right. Like, it's always, to me, in the end, like, all of this new stuff, is it right or wrong? And I think it needs to be, the only thing that can be right is if we just ask and then see if they like it. And then you get more support from the artist, which gives you more support for your fan base, whatever it is, if it's Republican or Democrat.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's what they're asking for. That's what that, according to Variety, the letter pretty much concludes exactly what you just said, Waldemar. It's just, We're just asking you to ask us first. That's it. I mean,
That's
I
all.
agree. Yeah, you should ask. And they should be able to say no. I agree. You should be like, nah, don't do that. You know?
Yeah, because it's their song. Like
It's their
Like
song.
just like a TV show can't take it, a political person can't take it, even a YouTuber can't.
Yeah.
You can't use it in short films or whatever. I think everyone has to ask. It doesn't matter what it's for, and even if it's someone you like, even if it's the political party that you want, I'm pretty sure they should ask. Like,
Just to make sure.
Yeah,
everything's cool.
I think it's just a problem with it's systematic because of the PROs are the ones that are controlling it and letting political parties use it.
Yeah.
So
Without any permission.
Without any permission. So that means we have to change something in the PROs.
Yeah.
For it to actually happen.
Yeah.
And then it'll be good for the artists and the political parties, because I think if they have respect of the artists that they're using, then they're going to have a bigger fan base and there's going to be no drama about it. Or maybe they like the drama, I don't know. But
yeah,
that might be one thing.
That's their prerogative. That's anyone's. Yeah, I do agree with obviously the musicians. Yeah. I think it will make a difference. Because then if Trump wants Rocking in the Free World, he's going to have to write it himself. He's going to write his own fucking dope-ass American song.
Yeah, that's cool. Let us know what you guys think in the comments of if you guys think it's right or wrong, or how we should move forward as musicians or just people in general with this topic. Let's move on because it's time for Jeff Young!
Copyright infringement!
I don't know if we've even started the interview or not.
We've been recording.
So I want to just make sure, because I got a little dog. She can't get out. I got a French bulldog here, the studio mascot. I'm here at Rephrase Studios.
Uh-huh.
In Dayton,
a really
right?
magical studio in Dayton, Ohio.
Nice.
It's an underground urban legend, this studio. A lot of people recorded here, from the Ohio Players back in the day to even their recent stuff, to the Goo Goo Dolls, to the Breeders. And I'm actually, the laptop is sitting on the piano, and I'm right in front of the baby grand. That if you're any Miles Davis fans, if you guys dig Miles or anyone watching, this is where they filmed the Hollywood documentary biopic. It's called Miles Ahead. Starring Don Cheadle from Ocean's 11. Amazing. Yeah. He stars in it as Miles, and he directs it. And they actually did a lot of the outside scenes in Cincinnati, Ohio. I guess people are starting to film here more because of tax breaks in Ohio. So Ohio's the new hot spot for Hollywood films. But they couldn't really find a studio. They needed a studio that had the vibe of like a New York 1970s kind of feel, and that's exactly what this studio is. So 20 people descended to scout out the studio, and they took it over and they used the control room and the lounge. They dressed the lounge and made it look different, and used this room as like the band room. And there's scenes where Miles is leaning over the conductor right at this piano, and Don Cheadle's right here doing the scene when they're coming up with their beautiful arrangements for his historic,
Wow, my God.
I think some of those albums are on Verve, same label of the Brazilian project I did, but I digress. I mean, so this studio is really cool, and you wouldn't think in the Midwest and Dayton, Ohio, you normally wouldn't find a studio like this. And I was actually living in New York and driving 9 hours here to work here, so that probably says something about the studio. They got all the analog stuff, and what I really love, and you seem like you might be a Freddie Mercury fan, Derek.
Absolutely.
And a Jeff Buckley fan.
Absolutely, all the way.
Well, I got Jeff Buckley stories too, but you kind of remind me of him.
Awesome.
And Buckley went to MI also. It's all like an MI episode.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
Did you go with him? Was that, or did you?
No, I think he was literally just a year before me.
Yeah.
Or a year after me. I'm not sure, but we were really close. I was there half the year when Paul Gilbert was there, though.
Eraser X.
Yeah, we got off track. But now that we brought up Jeff Buckley, actually met his mother. And that was like, I got a Jeff Buckley pick. It's my most prized guitar pick.
Oh my God.
I got to hang out with her and she told me all kinds of stories. Here's a beautiful story about Jeff and Brazilian music that I think that you'll drink up. Just like many of us, I'm sure like you and me, Jeff would sit around with his turntable and he loved Brazilian music as well. And she said one day, and she was blown away that my name was Jeffrey Scott Young and his name was Jeffrey Scott Buckley. She even made me show her my ID. She was like, no way. But, and I won't forget, I want to mention that the studio has the same board Queen. It's the Queen mixing board here, and I'll get back to that. But that's why I brought up Freddie Mercury. But Jeff's mom said he was working in his room one day on this Brazilian song, like over and over, just picking up the needle, going back, like we've been known to do, musicians.
Yeah.
And she's like, she got so fed up. She's like, I just got to go shopping or something. I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
She said she came back and he was still playing that same album. She went, Jeff, can you change the song? And she goes, but when I walked in, it wasn't the album anymore. It was him.
Oh my God.
He learned the song that quick and was that,
immersed in it.
Already reflecting the song that she thought it was the album.
Wow.
That was a great story. She told me many. That was an amazing experience meeting her. But what I was mentioning about Freddie is that part of the magic of the studio, when you hear the track, like when you listen to Slow Burn or In the Flesh, or even the Hendrixy Beatles thing, remake of Something that I did, all those tracks, all three of those were done here. And they do have, especially on this new one, when you listen to those harmony guitars, you're like, wow, man, that really sounds like old Queen. Because this is the same board. I mean, Queen was at Trident Studios. This is the Trident board we have here at the studio.
Wow.
So, everything's going through analog all the time through that board. And it really, I've worked on Neve boards and APIs. This board here is magic. Yeah. Wow. So, let me make sure the lady didn't.
And so she's not you're a French bulldog, but she's the, like you said, the mascot of the studio. She's yeah. The secret.
And she wants to go out and get some sun. But
she needs a tan.
She's the kind of dog someone out there on the sidewalk would walk by and just grab and run with, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm keeping a close eye on her.
Beautiful. It's easy. I think this podcast is saying the Masters of Cuteness podcast.
Masters of what?
Of Cuteness podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
Damn.
Lady, huh?
So she's been in recording studios all over the country, backstage at many gigs when we toured, and she even ran on stage. We were playing Charlotte, West Virginia one night, and you sound check in the afternoon, go back to the hotel, get ready. We take our guitars back, and then because I travel with a lot of guitars, and I was bringing them back. Once we got back to the gig that night, I was just carrying my guitars into the venue, and we had Tallulah and a Pomeranian on tour with us. The Pomeranian was great about staying in because they're a little more fear-based, but not this one. She's a social butterfly. So I was carrying two guitars backstage. Next thing I know, the audience is erupting. And where's Tallulah? She ran on stage, didn't you? You ran on stage trying to be so I had to run out and get her. I'm like crouched down and everything, like, sorry. Excuse me, sorry. So I just got to get my dog. I think they liked her more than the opening band, though.
which is usually the case.
Yeah.
That's for Jeff.
And usually warranted. And then in this case.
Yeah, exactly. Jeff, you're blowing my mind right now. You just told. There's so much going on right now, man. That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing all of this. Oh my God.
But we wanted to know So what makes Zeph, how did you like start playing guitar and like move out to LA? Because you're from Dayton, right?
Or you're from Michigan, no?
I'm from Dayton, it's kind of like Los Angeles. You got LA, but then you got Burbank and North Hollywood and West, all these little suburbs. So where I grew up is in the Kettering Centerville area. Kind of really cool. The Breeders are from Oakwood, which is another that's bumped right up to Centerville. And actually, Rob Lowe, the actor's from Oakwood. Oh, cool. Actually, his dad's a lawyer. I was going to have him represent me on a case with our family. You kind of have a Rob Lowe
vibe, a little bit.
Yeah. Pardon?
Vibe. You kind of give me a Rob Lowe vibe a little bit, too.
Must be something in the water back here.
Yeah.
But, so, I think I really dig the energy here. Maybe it's I think of John Mellencamp, how no matter what he did, he always stayed in Indiana, which is literally like, 2 hours to Indianapolis from where I'm sitting right now. Right. And like I said, the studios here, my friends, it's just a cool energy here. And, I've lived in LA for almost like 25 years, lived in New York, Florida, Brazil. Wow. And the vibe's cool here. So I grew up here. And just like so many kids, they came around in first grade with the orchestral instruments, the violas, cellos, violins, all the upright bass and whatnot.
Right.
So I started playing viola in first grade.
Oh, wow.
And it's funny because my first single from the album, Monsoon, I don't know if you've heard that one, but that's got Tina Guo, and she's Asian cellist.
Yeah.
I know her. She's in L.A. too. Yeah. Did you hear that track?
Yeah, I heard it when I heard your interview. You played it right before the Ronnie's. Ronnie went out. Ronnie Platt.
So you've heard it. So I'm really into Django Reinhardt and gypsy jazz and gypsy music. Yeah. So Monsoon was kind of like a souped up modern day version of something along those lines. Plus, everything else is Zeppelin and Yes and Rush and all the stuff we grew up on. And
it's an awesome track.
The funny thing is, I was playing viola, but sitting in the room with the teacher and all the other students, looking across that room, lusting after that cello. So I went home one day after school and I said, Mom, I want to switch. I want to switch from viola to cello. And it's like I was one track mind. I was just like laser focused on that cello, and it's all I wanted to think about. And I think my mom wisely realized that if she would have said yes, she would have ended up being the designated cello cartage service. Everywhere I had, like, viola's one thing, but cello's a commitment, for everyone involved. And I'm in first grade, so she didn't let me switch, and then I got frustrated and gave it up. Third grade, they came around with the band instruments, trumpets, trombones, oboe, clarinet. I fell in love with the tenor sax. I was like, for some reason, just laser focused on tenor sax.
Yeah.
So and that was cool because that gave me, I played tenor sax from 3rd to 9th grade. And actually the last year we lost the baritone sax players, so I had to learn bass clef and switch to baritone. So I had to learn a whole different clef, and that was cool. But that's really what gave me, and I think it's really valuable, and I told all my GIT, I tell all my Skype students, to have that kind of foundation, as basic or as you can get, to be able to read music, what's a quarter note, half note, whole note, the rest, how to get through, even if you have to crawl through a transcribed music like a Bach piece or, a Sergio Assad piece, whatever you want to learn. And playing with other people and dynamics and having a conductor that was like a drill sergeant, I think that was really good. Mm-hmm. Just at a young age, putting that awareness like into my psyche, so it's just kind of there without thinking. So, but around 14 years old, and it's a funny story because in the local like for sale paper. It was called the Trading Post in Dayton, where people would sell their used stuff. It would come out every week. I bought a Daisy BB gun, right? And I'd never shot a gun or an animal. And I went up in the field across from our house and I shot a rabbit. And I'll tell you, it's the last thing I'll ever shoot.
Yeah.
And that gun, I just didn't want to think about it again. And my buddy down the street had been playing guitar. He got one of those cheap, Kmart specials, whether the pick guard's the same color as the Fender medium guitar picks. I went down to his house one day. It was sitting in his closet, right?
Yeah.
And I said, "What's up with the guitar, Matt?" And he said, "Oh, that's too damn hard to play." And he had given up. Likewise, I had my reasons for giving up the BB gun. He had his reasons for giving up the guitar. And I said, "I'll trade you my BB gun for that guitar." And the rest is history.
Damn.
A mystery.
Yeah.
Damn, that's awesome. Traded your gun for even something with more ammo in it, something with more.
As a musician, there may be sometimes where I wish I had that gun back to put myself out of my own misery, navigating and circumventing the music business, but I digress. So that's when I started. So it was 14, and the typical first songs, Smoke on the Water, Stairway to Heaven.
Same.
I figured out, I had this little reel-to-reel tape player, and I figured out if I plugged my guitar into it, there was a 1/4-inch input. I had a crappy guitar tone, but it was enough that I could sit there and start with my ear. And my dad had an amazing turntable and a stereo that he'd built with movie theater speakers and these beautiful wooden cabinets. So I'd sit there slow. I figured out, because there was no YouTube and there was no transcription tools, like the little things you can buy at Guitar Center and slow your CDs down and or the Marantz. Even what I used at GIT when I went there was a Marantz cassette deck that let you slow the tape down. But back in the early days, I figured out that 33 slowed down to 16 is nearly a perfect octave. Obviously, it sounds like you're trudging through quicksand. But if you use your ear, and again, that was a lot of ear training, like figuring out Eddie Van Halen's Spanish Fly. I remember that took me 4 months more, and plus going back over the years refining it. And I just taught that on my YouTube channel. I did a Eddie Van Halen Explored guitar workshop live. I've done a few of them on a few different artists. I think I'm up to 6, and I'm about to do 7, maybe this week or next week. I'm going to do Steve Morse, which will be cool.
Nice.
But, so slowing down and just figuring stuff out and skipping school and like figuring out the solo to Train Kept a Rollin', and this will come back later while I'm bringing this particular song up. And idolizing Joe Perry and Brad Whitford and just mesmerized. Wow, those solos are, and they were the best solos on that record, Get Your Wings, although that's a classic album. I remember skipping school and just trying to get those solos to the Aerosmith version of Train Kept a Rollin' off Get Your Wings.
Right.
And it was only many years later, and even after Megadeth, when I was being managed by Diamond Dave Management, which is essentially who managed Van Halen, and left with David Lee Roth and Diamond Dave Management. They directed all the California Girls Gigolo videos. I think Pete Angelis was in that video. They broke the Black Crowes, and they were managing me. And one night they called up. They were managing my band. One night they called up and they said, "Dave wants you to come to his house in Pasadena." This was after Steve Vai left David Lee Roth band.
Oh, yeah.
He heard your demo and he pretty much wants you to be the new guitar player. And I thought about it for a minute, and I don't know if I regret it. And actually, I don't regret it, and I'll tell you why. And I just had a feeling like he's going to end up in Vegas. And Vegas, it wasn't a cool thing to think about at that time. It kind of got cooler, but then I moved there and realized Vegas ain't cool. but I turned it down, and I didn't end up going to his house they just want me to go to his house that night. They're just like, go. And my band was in my living room, like 3 of the members, and I'm like looking at them, and I was, thinking about all we'd been through together. So I turned that gig down, and Jason Becker got that gig.
Oh, yeah.
And at the time, how he played his shrapnel stuff and what his playing was like. He couldn't play blues. And, of course, David Lee Roth's voice is more blues bass. He's like a glorified crooner.
Yeah.
And Van Halen's music is very blues based, and the songs he would have to cover.
Right.
And the wheelhouse where Roth is always going to have that, kind of blues Louis Armstrong rock and roll kind of vibe. So I found out that they sent Jason Becker to Steve Hunter as his blues teacher.
Oh.
That's when I discovered that Steve Hunter's the guy who played those solos on Train Kept A-Rollin'. At least the first half of the Aerosmith tune is Steve Hunter.
Really?
On the halftime, when it comes in halftime and it sounds like it's in the studio. Yeah. And they were a guitar team. They were like 2 Steve Lukethers. Yeah. It was Steve Hunter and Dick Wagner was the other one. They were a team of studio guitar players in the 70s who I idolized because Alice Cooper Goes to Hell is one of my, and Welcome to My Nightmare, the predecessor,
of course,
is one of my favorite albums of all time, and for sure Goes to Hell is an amazing concept album. And Steve and Dick Wagner were in that band on that album. It was Alice Cooper and the Hollywood Vampires, which now they have this band all these years later. He had that name back on Goes to Hell. If you look at the back cover of Alice Cooper Goes to Hell, his band, he called it the Hollywood Vampires, so that's where they've pluck that name out of history.
Oh,
but
wow.
And that's an album remember the Alice Cooper hit I Never Cry, which was the radio AM ballad, kind of acoustic-y.
Yeah.
That album is balls deep in rock, man. That album is serious. It's got a lot of different stuff, some danceable stuff.
Right.
Just the track You Can Go to Hell. Just listen to, and then Steve Hunter does a solo on the track I'm the Coolest. And it's a real slinky, bluesy. Derek, you would love that song. Go check out that Alice Cooper song, I'm the Coolest.
Absolutely.
And that's Steve Hunter. So when I put 2 and 2 together all these years later, and this is post Megadeth, when I'm with Diamond Dave Management.
Yeah.
And when Jason got that gig, I mean, we're in the early 90s now. I immediately said, so that was the team, and I want to just give more reference on Steve Hunter because he's an unsung legend in the guitar world. He's the guy playing on all that Lou Reed stuff you heard on the radio, like Sweet Jane, the live rock and roll Animal album. He's the 12-string guitar on Peter Gabriel's Salisbury Hill.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
Alice Cooper even had him when he had Orianthe as his guitar player a couple years ago. Steve was the second, also another guitar. They may have 2 or 3 guitar players, but Steve was wearing the top hat just like he did back in the day on the Welcome to My Nightmare tour. Because Dick and Steve were Alice Cooper's guitar players on those tours. So Steve and he was also in Mitch Ryder in the Detroit Wheels. I think he's out of Detroit. I think that was his first big band, but people really need to learn about Steve. And the second I learned that they were sending Jason to Steve, I want to learn with Steve. I want to go to Steve.
Right.
I was driving up into the Hollywood Hills faster than you could say Train Kept A-Rollin' to take lessons with him, and I was walking in because I went after Megadeth and everyone was shredding and Floyd Roses and tapping. So I wanted to get back more bluesy, and I was really into Johnny Winter. I still am into him. I saw him in Florida, and he's probably the best blues guitarist that I've ever seen live. He just knocked me out at this festival. So I went there, and he goes, he took me back to Albert King. He's like, Stevie Ray's cool, but here's where he learned it from. So he put on Albert King Years Gone By. And changed my life, and gave me, I mean, you can hear stuff Steve taught me in slow burn because I wrote that song right when I was studying from him. That song was written in 93, 94 when I was studying with him. So you hear like the solo, the middle main solo, the real slow hand, kind of David Gilmour, bluesy.
Yeah.
That's a product 100% of studying with Steve Hunter. Wow. And again, as I mentioned at the top, I kind of sometimes regret passing on that Roth gig.
Yeah.
But when I think about it, when I see what happened with Jason and his health,
yeah.
And if you've seen the movie Not Dead Yet, and you know Jason got Lou Gehrig's disease right when he finished that record, and that's why they could never tour the album or anything.
Right.
I'm so glad I turned it down because I think it was destiny that he had to have that one shot. He had to have, I'm getting chills talking about, to have that one opportunity because he was my friend. Jason and I were just becoming buddies.
Yeah.
The last time I saw him was like NAMM, early 90s, like it was before he even got the Roth gig. And so when I heard that he got sick, it kind of crushed me. And so now thinking about it, and I kind of just put that together a few months ago. I kind of just thought, I watched Not Dead Yet again with a friend. And I said, no, he had to have that gig because now he got to play on that album and he did some great playing on that record. And Steve Hunter is now on that record with him, and they're best friends to this day. And he's playing a lot of the rhythm guitar and even wrote some of the songs with Jason on that record. And the Roth album is called A Little Ain't Enough, I believe.
Yeah.
The big tunes from that was Showtime, the real fast.
Yeah.
Like kind of Van Halen shuffle, like Hot for Teacher.
Yeah.
And it's a great album. It didn't, because of what happened with Jason, they didn't even get to tour it, but
yeah,
so that was a great story, and I think guitar players will eat that story up there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a bittersweet story. It's like Jason Becker had so much life to him at that time. He was 19, I think, 20 maybe at oldest, and he killed it. I can't still play his stuff. I've been trying to always try to even play one of his licks like at his tempo. Never can do it. And it's insane.
Well, that's what the prodigy, when they say that kid's a prodigy, that's what they mean. He was that. Yeah. Like even Friedman would say in that documentary, there's that scene where Marty says, when they started playing together in Cacophony, he's like, and Jason was younger, and that's why Varney put him with Marty they each had something that the other didn't have. And Marty said when he'd start playing the lines that I'm writing, he's playing them more beautifully than me, making them sound more beautiful. And that's at the point of guitar playing. I think once you've been playing 10, 20, 30 plus years, and whether you're doing, you want to make it as heavy as you can or as delicate as you can, it's about making that note, every note you strike is beautiful and impactful as you can make it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You know it. I see you perform, Derek, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I stole something from Becker. There's like this thing that he does is every note is usable. So even if the note is not in the scale, like if it's the wrong complete note, you just bend it a half step. And he did it all the time, and it just made everything more beautiful. So he bent every note just a little bit, half step down into the note that what you're supposed to do, and that, like I call it like the Becker bend. It's like the most awesome thing.
It's funny you mentioned that.
That's funny
because that's what got me about Johnny Winter.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, it was an outdoor thing, and he's an albino, so he came out in the sun, and he was like squinting, and he had a hat on, like kind of like it was like a mole coming out of the ground, man. I was like, wow, this guy is very fragile.
Yeah.
He's a delicate, and his documentary, his biopic is amazing. He's in it. I mean, it's I own it, and I recommend that to everyone. It's another bittersweet story, but when he came out and started playing, that's what really struck me. Even if he went to a note in blues, he was improvising. So if he went to a note that started out of tune, he bent that note and made it musical, made it work, and it made it 10 times cooler.
Yeah, that's the
than
thing.
If it would have been just like a more classically pure, you know what I'm saying?
What you're supposed to do kind of thing,
predictable,
Wow.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's cool in music to be out of tune for a second until you can. I mean, when you're playing chromatically.
Yeah, that's the thing. It adds like intensity and like you add stress to the song, and then you resolve
exactly. Miles Davis. We're talking about Miles. He said there are no wrong notes. Right?
Yeah, that's and that.
As long as you play that mistake with some motherfucking attitude.
Yeah, that's all that matters. My friend Scott Page, he's a sax player. He was a sax player for Pink Floyd and Toto for some time, and Supertramp. He always says, to make me feel better, because we played a few gigs together. I'm sometimes out of tune. He's just hey, if you're out of tune, it just sounds like there's more of you.
Yeah.
And just he would always kind of, but yeah, he's always about the attitude kind of. He's a sax player, so he's just like, it doesn't matter. He always says like, it does. You could, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know how he puts it. He puts it so well. Just you gotta like, if you walk in the room, you gotta present yourself like you got the biggest dick in the room. You don't have to have it necessarily, but you gotta act like it. That's how you should play your instrument.
Yeah.
So I think that about sums it up. Exactly.
It's one way I look at it.
Sums it up. And to put a period on the story of to put the cherry on the top of the story of when I started playing guitar, which was at 14, and so there was a year there when I was playing sax and guitar at the same time. And all of our schools, I'm sure you guys had talent shows in your school, and we had a talent show, and so I auditioned to play guitar, which I got in the show. So I was going to do a solo guitar thing, but the band was down in the pit. And so we had to play between acts to kill time. And the band got to do like three or four full songs throughout the talent show. So I was kind of focusing on both my band stuff, the sax stuff I had to learn, and the guitar thing I was doing. And one day I was in band class, whatever period it was, and the talent show teacher came to the band door. The teacher came to the door and called me out to the stage just to run my tune, my 3-minute whatever segment with it. And the band teacher, his name was Mr. Finkham. He, fittingly, because he was a rat fink, he, in front of the whole class, I was getting up quietly, trying to just squeak out. He's Jeff Young. He's like, Jeff Young, you don't even care about your saxophone anymore. You're more wrapped up in the guitar. You're more focused on that guitar. You're in love with that thing. You should just go make love to that guitar. And I thought that just hit me like this is like, it was 8th grade, 9th grade. It was so inappropriate and embarrassing in front of your whole class. Like, what teacher says that? I told him to F off. He was like, oh, okay. I guess I deserve that. I guess I deserve that. But I took his advice and I stopped playing the sax, and I've been making love to my guitar ever since. So. And it did all right for me. I've done all right.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Fucking killing it all.
So. And then, from there, I just started playing in bands around Dayton, and we ended up going as far as the World's Fair, the Knoxville World's Fair, whatever year that was. And we opened we played a club. I still remember the club was called the Bell Star. It was right there, right by the grounds where they were having the World's Fair, so the people at night could go have things to do after the fair shut down. We were opening for Artemis Pyle, the drummer from Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Oh, cool.
Who had survived. He's the one that survived the plane crash. I mean, he even had his tractions his equipment backstage that he did before he played. So, I mean, the guy was definitely seriously messed up from that plane crash. And imagine, you know, they weren't doing anything that aggressive, and Skinner's music could be aggressive, and Skinner was killer, but they had 2 drummers to begin with. And our band was called Black Widow, and we were doing like Iron Maiden, Murders in the Rue Morgue, and Heaven and Hell, Neon Nights, and just like heavy Plasmatics, Children of the Dam. You know, we had a female singer, a really cute girl that could sing heavy. She could do Benatar to Pretenders to Dio Dickinson. She ended up getting nodes on her vocal cords from all the screaming, but they ended up pulling our power 5 times during our show because they knew they weren't going to come on after you know, this young band. We were like a young Def Leppard right here in Dayton. I still play our demo on the show all the time. People love it. Like the first time I was at, wasn't this studio, but another studio, my first time in the studio. And I'm definitely proud of that tape. I'll definitely release it on a box set or something. The drummer has the masters. I got to try to bribe him because I just got a bootleg off a cassette. But yeah, so that was our local band. We got as far as the Knoxville World Fair. Wow. That girl got nodes. We ended up getting a guy singer, and this guy was from Cincinnati, which is 45 minutes south. And this guy was incredible, man. He actually went on to play with Randy Piper from Wasp, and Randy Piper from Wasp moved back to Cincinnati because of the singer, like all the post-Wasp years, and he's been living around here just because this singer's that good. His name's Rich Lewis, the singer, and he's been playing with Randy Piper since the 80s. This guy was incredible. We had a booking agent. He goes, "You got to go down to Cincinnati and see this kid."
Right.
This guy, we sat back. The first time we went and saw him play was in a band called Prisoner. He did Bon Scott, Brian Johnson, Ronnie James Dio, Bruce Dickinson, like he was like an impersonator. Wow. Like he was Rich Little. I've never seen I was just like, and he looked like Bon Scott, which was a trip. So we got that guy in the band, and we played all around here. But he had an alcohol problem, and I got to the point where one day I remember they were all downstairs after practice getting high and drinking, and I went straight up to my room, and I used to have a mirror in my drawer. Like I'd pull up my drawer and set a mirror there so I could watch my hand. I was just sitting there playing and listening to the dudes downstairs talking, and I'd read an article in Guitar Player magazine about GIT. It was just like in the back. It was like a 1-page article. Like there's this school in Hollywood, California, where Tommy Tedesco from the Wrecking Crew, you know, and all these other people are teaching. Don Mock, you know, Scott Henderson, Frank Gambale, all these guys that were teaching when I was there. Joe Diorio, Howard Roberts, who started the school. That day I said, am I going to sit here in Dayton playing cover tunes the rest of my life, or am I going to, and I just made the decision. I asked my parents if I could go out there. I showed them the article in the magazine, and somehow I convinced them.
Wow.
To go out there, and that put me, I wanted to go to the school, but more than going to the school, I just knew it would put me where I needed to be at that time, because that's like 84.
Yeah.
Right.
So LA was the place to be, because you had, and literally the week I got there, Rat, you know, their first time, I love Warren D. Martini. Mm-hmm. I had the gig to replace him last year, and I just couldn't play with Stephen Percy. Sorry. Hold on. Hey.
Luca, right?
So that album, the Rat album, was released. I remember driving around getting the lay of the land, getting used to LA, and Rat was on KNAC doing their interview and on all the stations, and they were playing Round and Round and Back for More and all those songs. So that's exactly the time I arrived, was literally the week that the Rat album, so you know exactly what the vibe was in LA and on the Strip at that time. and it was the best of times.
Yeah, it seems like it's the perfect like time to go to LA.
Yeah,
That would be. I don't even
84.
know if there's any place to go during my lifetime, like
Yeah, that's
to
a good
go
point.
that's that perfect.
There's no
really a-
scene anywhere now
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane.
because the music industry is a diabolical snake pit.
We were wondering if we can ask you one last question, kind of like a quick fire one. What is the best advice you would give a person looking to do what you do? Oh, is this going to be a whole nother
You want me
podcast?
to be honest?
Yeah,
You want me to be honest?
Yeah, be
Like,
brutal.
candid?
Super
Yes.
brutal,
And not
super
give
honest.
the PC answer. Like I told my daughter, she's 18 and she's drop dead, blonde hair, blue eyes. I mean, she could be a model, an actress in music. I would not let my own child go into this business.
Right.
If you Google Hunter Thompson's quotes about the music business, I'd say that's an understatement. What Hunter Thompson had to say about it's a shallow money trench where pimps and demons run free. Oh, there's also a negative side.
And there's also a
Music
negative
is
side.
like
Just got
I
this.
was telling you about when my teacher said, "Go make love to your guitar." Yeah, like you got to choose between saxophone and guitar. And I said that the rest is a history and a mystery. What I usually say is also a blessing and a curse because, I mean, the music business is it's the most brutal business. If only, I mean, forget the industry, but like this day and age, people don't even listen anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
People don't listen anymore to music, so it's hard to stop talking. Everyone's on social media trying to be a star.
Yeah.
You know? So it's a whole different slant than in the 80s, even in the 90s, the 2000s. It's not the best time to be a musician, which is sad for me because I feel like I'm making the best music of my life.
Right.
You know, I think Slow Burn in the Flesh, Monsoon. I mean, I don't know what more I could give you guys than that.
Yeah.
And it's like through this, you know, I've went through a thing, you know, I've been close to being a millionaire. And I've also been to the place where for the last 4 years, after a family member embezzled $500,000 from me, left me living on change in a jar, that I've wanted to sell all my gear and move to an island somewhere and just like, what's it worth? Like, does anyone even appreciate it? It's like that Def Leppard song, Foolin'. Is anybody out there? Does anyone care? You know?
Yeah.
Does anybody mean anymore? So my first advice is if you're going to do this, you're not doing it for the money or because all the guys, like a lot of the people who I saw move out to GIT, both when I went there and a lot of the students I taught who are trying to be rock stars and think they're going to get rich and get a lot of pussy. And because it's a lonely life, man. If you want to be in this upper capstone right here, the best guitar players on this planet,
Right.
you got to get real with yourself right now and think of the competition out there. And in Spain, I'm telling you, these flamenco guitarists, a lot of these arrogant American guitarists, these flamenco players will eat you guys alive. I mean, flamenco is the hardest instrument to play. You don't got no amp. You have no effects. It's not even as full as a classical guitar. It's a very percussive instrument. You're naked, and it does not help you. Like every day that thing's staring at you, double dog daring you to like conquer me. And this is, I mean, I'm quoting Paco de Lucia, is
Right.
Yeah.
the greatest flamenco guitarist of all time. This is his words. So you gotta, if you want to be in this upper capstone, you're gonna do what I did. I never went to bars as a kid. We had a pregame keg party at my house where my whole high school came. Party of the year, and I wasn't even there. My parents chaperoned, and I was across town here at rehearsal for my band because I was playing clubs underage. I gave up going to bars. I've never been in strip clubs. I don't do sporting events, going hanging with my buddies. You know, it's not a glorious life. It's not the glamour life. It's this whole thing being a rock star. The Nickelback tune is a joke. That's a joke. Yeah. That's a joke, man. If you do music, you do it because it's in your core and because you're born doing it. And as far as I remember, from playing viola to sax, I remember one day my dad coming home to give me a whooping because my buddy and I got in some trouble in a construction site, breaking some shit, and we got caught. It was really my buddy. He was like Dennis the Menace. He was he was a menace. But I was going to get. But all day I'm sitting in my closet writing lyrics, and I'm not even playing guitar in it. I don't even know why I'm doing it. It's just like you got to be born to do it, and no plan B. My parents were always like, you got to have a plan B. My dad, when I moved out to GIT, he's like, you know, Jeff, you might as well just stop in Las Vegas and, you know, walk up to the craps table and roll those dice because that's what you're doing with your life. And, you know, father knows best, right? And that's what I was doing. So, but I wouldn't trade. I mean, I've had the highest highs, and it doesn't matter whether you're playing for 130,000 people at the Monsters of Rock, Castle Downington, with Guns N' Roses and Megadeth and David Lee Roth and Iron Maiden and whoever else was on the bill that day, or whether you're playing with Badi and we're doing like, you know, everything from 100 seats to the bigger places we would do, you know, in Lilith Fair and Farm Aid, or you're playing a 100-seat, 50-seat club. It doesn't matter. If you're born to play music, you're just going to do it.
Right.
And even when it gets to that point where you're about ready to sell all your gear and move to that desert island, something always stops you from doing that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the only reason for me at this point, because I know most people aren't listening anymore, they're too hooked into like the mainstream bullshit narrative, like fake sports and TV and the music that's being pushed on them by Hollywood. So like the only reason I'm doing the music that I'm doing, you can listen to it, is from just because, you know, if I didn't know I could make music that sounded like Slow Burn or the stuff that I think it's good, I like it, and my friends like it, and the people, that's why I'm doing it. If I thought that I was like putting out shit that was even B plus, I'd give up. I'd just walk away. And that's the main thing. If you can't be honest with yourself and look in the mirror and listen to your own music and your friends and the harshest critics you can find, I'm sending Slow Burn to the magazine writers I know, and Pete Pardo from the Sea of Tranquility, and people that'll be brutal with me. I send it to my roommate, my 1984 roommate from GIT, who's watched everything that I've done. He's heard every demo, everything that I've done. And if I even thought that I was putting out B plus stuff, I'd quit and give up.
Right.
So if you can't say I'm doing like A plus material, then why are you doing it?
That's
just
so
like
true.
Step off and step aside. And there's too many people already polluting it's like I go down my news feed and I belong to all these guitar groups so that I can go promote my stuff. And so I've got all these kids and dudes and from every age bracket sitting in their bedrooms just posting stuff. It's like, why are you doing that, man?
Right.
Like you're badly playing covers. Like what's the goal, man? And it's just like, there's so much stuff. I remember this is a great ending story. Sergio Assad.
Right.
We've already talked about, man. Again, I'm going to send you this video at the end.
Yeah.
One song, dude. I won't have to say no more. You guys are going to be just like,
not worthy.
We walked to a Tower Records one day. Badi and me, we were somewhere, and I don't know what, we were probably in New York, or LA, and we walked into Tower Records, and Sergio looked around, and the brothers are on Elektra Nonsuch, the classical, very reputable label. I'm getting chills telling the story. He looked around the store. He's just like, and he looked at me. He's like, Jeff, how is anyone ever going to find our music with all this music in here? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think it's up to the listeners and people who love music to seek out artists like us, like Derek, like me, like Badi, to find radio shows like Music Without Boundaries. And it's up to artists like us to keep making music that's pushing boundaries, that's just not selling out to the mainstream narrative.
Yeah.
Captain Jeff
That was
Young.
just between us there.
Of course. No, Jeff Young, I have to bolt. I have a session, actually, a writing session.
Tell me what you're doing, dude.
I'm just trying to do it every single day. I have a writing session almost every day at noon, and I'm just trying to bust them out, trying to record this album in August, and actually
You're great. You're the kind of person you got to keep going because you're gifted. You're a performer. You have the charisma. You have the look. So you have, again, and off the record, you got to have all those elements, and people don't understand. You got to have the look. It's something that's born in you or it's not born in you.
Right.
And there's a lot of imitators and there's a lot of famous people. You can tell the difference between an actor who's born and can act and who's someone who can't act. You can tell the difference between Jeff Buckley and Justin Bieber, man. You can tell you're born. It's a magical thing when lightning strikes, and you got that, dude. So just be like me and be stubborn.
Let's do it.
Never give up.
Yes.
And Debbie's the same way. Debbie's got that.
Yeah.
There's just people like that.
Powerhouses.
Yeah, I just said her name because I just remember you have it. It's something, and other people were born and they should do other things, you know.
But it's important
unfortunately for me, I just got to keep playing guitar.
So I'll see you.
It was great crossing paths with you.
Amazing. Please, let's do this again.
Whoa! That was awesome! So crazy, man.
Yeah!
That was super awesome.
I can't believe what I just heard.
Yeah, it was like, Jeff is super badass.
Jeff Young, thank you, sir.
Yeah, that was awesome. Everybody, you have to go out there and right now buy Slow Burn. Just go down to the links below. Go to everything you can find from him. Get everything he has right now.
Slow Burn's his latest release. He released it this month in August. Get it now.
Get it right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now. Cool. Okay, you guys got it? Okay, now, next week we have Merv Douglas. And he is from Powerman 5000, and he played with Lords of Acid and a bunch of other bands.
Yes.
He's badass.
He's the bassist, singer, guitar player, producer, all of the above. He keeps going and going and going. He's an amazing artist.
Yeah, so please tune in next week. We're going to have it as soon as we release it next week.
Next week, you'll be there.
Yeah, so just tune in next week, and please like and subscribe. See you next week. Bye.